welcome to the All About Us podcast, where we deep dive into real stories of resilience, transformation, and the human experience. I'm your host, Carl Allen. Today's episode features an incredible, inspiring guest, Nick Segar. Diagnosed with spinal cancer at just 11 years old, Nick has since faced cancer 4 separate times in his life, enduring multiple surgeries, radiation, and countless hospital visits. But Nick's story isn't just about surviving. It's about adapting, finding purpose, and shifting perspective in the face of unimaginable adversity. Nick, thank you for being here today. Let's dive in. How are you doing today, Nick?
Carl, hey, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate that. I'm doing okay. I'm doing pretty well today.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Can you take us back to when you were first diagnosed at 11 years old? And what do you remember about that time?
Yeah, at the time, again, 11 years old, the symptoms were pretty severe, pretty stiff back spasms. I remember laying down in bed at night and it'd be kind of a temporary paralysis where I just couldn't really move my body for 5 to 10 minutes at a time. My family came from a medical history, right? So we got right into the medical diagnoses, and it's kind of, you do step one, talk about going to a physical therapist. Hey, maybe it's just you need to stretch more. You have a tight back. I grew up playing in sports. It was during baseball season at this time. And so maybe we started it with stretching and physical therapy. That's always kind of step one. As that didn't work, as it progressed, we kind of got down into step two. Well, what else could we do? We saw a specialist. And it got to the point where, again, my father was in the medical field. So he took me to his doctor one day, threw me in a MRI scan. Had an MRI. The radiologist took a look at it immediately, not his field of experience, whatever, but he took a look, right? And he said, I don't know much about the spine, but I know this big thing, which we used contrast. We talked about this a little bit, but contrast showed up on my spine. It was about the size of a hot dog, a tumor that went all the way from, I think, about S2 all the way up to L2, L1. So it was a pretty big tumor.
That's a big.
And then we kind of knew at that point that we had to go see some special people.
Okay, for our guess, S2 up to T what?
Not T, sorry. S2 to probably L1, L2. So we're really into L2.
Lumbar, sacrum and lumbar area. Okay, that's for my listeners here. Was it sudden onset? You said it was like during baseball season. So, for what, the first month or two at 11, you didn't feel nothing. And then all of a sudden, one day you woke up and you started having this problem?
Yeah, that's kind of how I remember it. It was just mild inconveniences. And then at some point, something switched where it really kind of compressed on my nerves a little bit, caused a lot of those symptoms that we were monitoring. And it was probably over from that period, from first onset to finding out the diagnosis. It was probably a 2 to 3 week period, if I remember it correctly, where it escalated pretty quickly for my family and myself.
Wow. Okay. How did your family and support system help you process such a life-changing diagnosis at such a young age?
Yeah, it's interesting because back then, it's 20 years ago, and you've learned quite a bit about tumors and cancer and kind of the medical research has really advanced in the past 20 plus years, even from early 2000s. At the time, it was explained to me of, hey, this is a tumor. We're going to get surgery. We're going to take it out and you'll be good to go and you'll be back by basketball season, right? Basketball season was coming up in the winter. And that was the messaging of, I don't want to say it was downplayed as an inconvenience or a downplayed as this wasn't a very severe surgery, but the messaging to 11-year-old at the time was, my first question when the doctors told me what was going on was, when can I go back to playing sports again? Right. It was about a 9 to 12 month recovery from surgery all the way back to, and it was, at the time, it was wear a back brace for 6 months, kind of like just a bone fracture. You're going to heal and you'll get back to basketball season. And I think that's kind of the way it was shared with me.
Yeah, when I spoke with patients and talked to people before, I tell them the last place you want somebody working on is your back. And I mean, it's kind of like splitting you open. And nowadays they have a lot of robotic surgery, but back at that time, it was just done the old-fashioned way. So what was your understanding of cancer back then, and how how has that evolved over the years? Because for me, I mean, anytime you heard of cancer and tumors, I mean, for me, just thinking about myself, if I would have heard that as a child, I would have been shocked. I would have been scared. How did that impact you?
Yeah, again, I think it was the messaging. At the time, my cancer was so rare. For no one's really going to care or know what this was, but it's called myxopapillary ependymoma. Probably one in 100,000 kids get it in America. Maybe one in a million kids get it in America each year. I think at the time it was like 12 cases.
Okay.
And at the time, it was thought of a tumor. It wasn't a malignant, progressive
Hmm.
cancer. It was just thought of, hey, this is a benign tumor that grows. You resect it. If you get a total resection, you're good to go.
Okay.
So I asked at the time, it wasn't really thought of as cancer. It was thought of as a tumor versus cancer. Again, it's progressed over the past 20 years where it's definitely cancer and spreading and growing. But an 11-year-old, your brain's kind of an amazing thing where it just adapts, right?
Correct.
Get told one thing, and as an 11-year-old, my singular focus was, when can I start playing with friends again? When can I start running? When can I start going back into the basketball season? It put things in perspective very quickly. I had to grow up at a pretty young age at 11, where there are some things I went through that most people never experience in their life. But it shapes your mindset and perspective. I guess I'll stop there, Carl.
Well, children are pretty amazing with their ability to process things, even even going into those years, your adolescence and teenage years. You have more of a positive outlook. You think like you're Superman. As children, you really think, okay, I can get through anything. Sometimes we really, as children, and can't process the gravity of such a situation, but that's good. That protects your mental being, actually.
You're
um,
exactly right.
You've had 5 back surgeries and gone through radiation twice. What was the most physically and emotionally challenging part of those experiences?
Oh, yeah, without question, it was my fourth surgery, my fourth recurrence of this ependymoma cancer back in 2018.
Hmm.
That was the one that kind of did me in, meaning
Okay.
my first 3 surgeries, my first radiation treatment, I was able to fully bounce back and recover. I was,
Mhm.
quote unquote, a normal kid through my college
Right.
years. I got to play sports. I had no physical obstacles to overcome
Mhm.
that time period. Then 2018 hit when my surgery kind of came out of left field, meaning we never talked about what could have happened after the surgery. It was always just kind of thought it was, hey, let's do this and you'll get back to your normal self. And then after the fourth surgery, my right leg was numb.
Okay.
I struggled walking. I couldn't walk on my own. I had a cane and a walker for some time, all of that
Right.
stuff. And that was kind of the shocker of, hey, it's gonna come back. Nerves are a funny thing, right? Nerves are fickle, nerves are funny, they kind of act on their own accord. You'll bounce back. And it
Right.
unfortunately those obstacles still come today. I have significant weakness in my right leg. I have foot drop. More surgeries came from it. I'm still using a cane, which is again in your first 26 years of life
Wow.
nothing you had to do, right?
Right. Exactly.
So that one definitely was the hardest to overcome, and I'm still, trying to overcome it, I guess, to some degree.
Okay. What have you found that assists you with handling these complications? Have you found anything that has really helped you progress any, or have you looked into any kind of like experimental treatments at all?
Right. Not necessarily experimental treatments. I think what's helped me just overcome the roller coaster of you're good for a couple of years, then reoccurrence hits, you have surgery, it takes about a year to recover, all of that stuff. I think what helps me overcome is your perspective really changes. You
Mhm.
get to understand very quickly in life. I was 11 having these thoughts of, uh, what's the big picture in life? Like,
Right.
what are we actually looking to strive to do? And my whole mindset's really had to change over the past 20 plus years of, for now, my focus is how can I be the best father I can possibly be? I have 2 young kids and a third on the way. My mindset is what can I do then just to support them? It's nothing about me anymore. Back when I was in college or a teenager, the mindset is what can I do just to overcome, bounce back, and make improvements or be progressive in your trajectory. You're young then. You think, the world's your oyster, there's potential everywhere. How can I get back to that spot where I'm quote unquote normal and I have normal people problems? That was always my mindset of, can I just get back to a quote normalcy? Yeah, you just have to adapt in every way possible.
So, Nick, how old are you now?
32.
You're 32 years old. At what age did you get married?
See, 2019. Let's do the math. I'm 27.
Okay. Now, when you got married, at what part of your surgical journey were you in between?
Yeah, that's a great kind of point in my journey of right. I had that surgery that kind of did me in December of 2018, and I got married in June of 2019.
Whoa.
So I had surgery, and then I went to Houston, Texas. I went
Uh-huh.
to Anderson Medical Clinic, which is kind of MD Anderson, which is known as one of the prominent cancer treatment centers in America. Right here. Correct. So that's where I had my second go at proton radiation therapy. I was there by myself for a couple of months, and it's singular focus. The singular focus was get me walking down the altar, get me to my wedding, which was in June. And so we did a lot of singular focus stuff of let's get through treatment, let's recover, let's get you walking, let's get you in the best position to go get married.
Okay. So you had the proton radiation treatment.
Yes.
And that basically that centered on your lower back and lumbar area.
The first go in 2009 was lower lumbar area only. The most recent one at MD Anderson was cranial spinal. So it was my entire brain and spine.
Okay. Whoa. Okay. Okay. So basically, I'm digressing a little bit. So first appearance was sacral lumbar. Where was the second appearance?
Yeah, the first, second, third appearances were all sacral lumbar area.
Okay.
Fourth appearance, it spread not only in my lower lumbar, but up to my thoracic area. And then a little node was in my C1, so right up here.
Mm-hmm.
At
Mm-hmm.
that point, again, it's over the course of 20 years. At the time, the cancer was thought of, hey, it's not going to spread through your central nervous system. It's going to stay in one area. Then as you learn more about this rare cancer, you kind of figure out, oh, it actually does move in your central nervous
Mm-hmm.
system. So by the time 2018, 2019 hit, when I got proton therapy, the decision was made that hey, we should probably do your entire central nervous system, which is your brain and spine.
Okay, so during your proton radiation treatment, that's going to be your thoracic area. Did they actually give you any steroids after your treatment at all?
Hard to answer. I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, because that can be a pretty sensitive area, and what happens many times is you will have some unknown tumors or known tumors, and if you don't give steroid treatment, they will actually swell before they'll start expanding before they start disintegrating. So it was just a question for me and something for my listeners. If you ever have someone who actually goes for radiation treatment, be very, very keen on making sure that the doctors follow up with steroid treatment. Okay, so what is your life like today? What is your day like? What are your physical limitations, and how do you mentally power through this with a marriage and young children?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Yeah, my day into my life is I had spinal fusion surgery about 4 months ago. So
Okay.
that's where they fused the joints in my lower lumbar, a lot of rods and screws in there.
Mm-hmm.
Still recovering from that. It's taken longer to recover than I would like. Like I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, I've been using a cane. I go to physical therapy twice a week at a fantastic clinic here called Neuro Hope in
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis. I am trying to walk independently more without a cane. I'm at work right now and I didn't bring the cane with me.
Okay.
Minor step for people, major step for
Okay.
myself.
Okay.
I am taking care of my 3.5-year old and almost 2-year old, which is kind of a full time job in itself.
Yeah.
And that's the life stage I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, My wife has been absolutely incredible, and you have 2 young kids and a husband who's going through stuff like this, your wife has to be the entire rock of your ecosystem, right?
Exactly,
But
exactly.
just how impressive does that person have to be to manage all of that? So, I have a lot of support, my family helps quite a bit. My life is as normal as you can make it. I'm at work right now, working a 9 to 5 and a
Okay.
marketing role, and I go home and I be a dad.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your wife. Where did you meet your wife at? How did the two of you meet? And where did you get married? What was that experience like?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Carl. We met in college. We both went to Indiana University, IU.
Hmm.
Talked about me being a homebody. I went to school in
Yeah.
state, about an hour and a half away from home. We met kind of in the Greek life. I was in a fraternity. She was in a sorority across the street. We knew of each other. It was a long process. We became friends first, longer process. We started talking more. I'd walk her home from engagements just to make sure she was safe and all good. And then we just kind of bonded from there.
And what is her name?
Yeah, Nikki. So my name's Nick. Her name's Nikki.
Nick
Try to
and
keep it
Nikki.
as simple as possible. And she's a nurse. So if you think about being a caregiver,
Wow.
being someone who puts everyone else before herself,
Right.
that's who she is.
Well, it seems like you looked up and you found the right one. And I want to give a shout out to your wife, Nikki. So we wanted to make her part of this show because she's actually a very big part of your experience at this point in time and your recovery.
Without question.
Yeah. Okay. After 4 separate battles with cancer, how did you keep yourself mentally strong?
Yeah, it's a process, right? But you're not mentally strong all the time. I think what I've learned is part of being quote mentally strong or grit or overcoming adversity, whatever buzzword you want to call it, right? Is you have to the way I look at it is you have to learn, understand, and somewhat appreciate the downtimes because then you get when you're in the good times, when things are going well, when you have the quote normal life, that's when you appreciate it more because you understand what it's like to not have that.
Right.
And I think that's helped me kind of shift perspective and focus is when I'm in these down times, when you get that cancer diagnosis again, when you're getting ready for surgery, you kind of learn and come to terms with this is all part of my journey. I have to understand it because when I'm not in this lifestyle anymore, when I'm having quote normal people problems, or if it's a Tuesday afternoon and I'm working and going home to see my kids,
Mhm.
I'll take those moments with a little more intentionality, a little more focus, a little more appreciation because you understand what it's like when you didn't have that.
Were there ever moments you felt like giving up or never?
Yeah, there are moments. It's fleeting moments.
Okay.
There's thoughts that come in. There are thoughts of the process. Why me?
Mhm.
There's thoughts of what did I do? They get this, these cards dealt to me. Yeah, there's been thoughts, fleeting thoughts, but again, it's part of the process. You have to understand that it's okay to have those thoughts because you're going to get over the hill and you're going to learn to appreciate the better times.
Life is a funny thing because uh, in most instances, you find strength within adversity. So, you just mentally adapt, you mentally and physically adapt to your situation. And it's just an amazing part of us being humans and what our mind can do, take and transition and respond to. What does mental resilience mean to you personally?
It's a good question. Mental resilience, in my opinion, really is the shaping of perspective, right? Because you think about what has anyone's personal journey or uniqueness made them a differentiator to whatever they're trying to pursue. And that's a little
Mhm.
generic. So let me be specific.
Right.
Right? I work in marketing and marketing strategy. And I think I can bring my life experiences into a shifting perspective of what are the biggest things we can be working on? What are the big hills? What are the small hills? What are the things that actually make a difference in one's life versus the things that, probably you shouldn't stress about because it's not the big picture. I've had to learn what the big picture was at a very young age. And I think that's what mental resilience is. Resilience is being able to take what's thrown at you and use it as a skill set, use it as a differentiator to yourself and what value can you add in whatever segment or industry or career
Mhm.
life that you're choosing to pursue.
Okay. You've talked about having a deep understanding of what truly matters in life. What are those things to you?
Yeah, that's the two little ones at home and a third on the way. That's the wife who's a rock. That's my family where I live close to. But those are the obvious ones, right? And then what's the big things in life for me is being able to take advantage of the times where you know memories are going to happen, right? What are those core memories in every person's life that you remember?
Mhm,
When those opportunities, if I realize that opportunity is coming in the moment, how prepared am I to take advantage of it? Meaning,
mhm,
a simple one is I want to create memories by taking my kids and traveling and maybe taking them to Europe or on a vacation or whatever that is, going to the beach. Am I prepared to take advantage of those core memories, right?
mhm.
Can I physically be fit enough to take them into the ocean? Can I be
Right.
physically fit enough to take them on
A roller coaster ride.
a roller coaster ride? Sorry, there's a lot of feedback on my end.
Mhm.
Oh, but that's my focus, right? The big things in life, am I prepared to take advantage of them?
In addition, okay, you have small children. How has your condition impacted your view and perspective of what's going on with your children's health? I mean, for me, I would think if I had cancer, I'd worried, okay, is my condition hereditary? Is the possibility that my kids might, one day have to deal with it? What is your thought process around that?
Yeah. There's always a heightened sensitivity, right? That I'm always going to have a heightened bias. And just to make sure, Carl, we're good on audio on your end?
Yeah. Yeah, the audio's good.
Cool. Oh, there's heightened biases. Just
Yeah.
because it's happened to me doesn't mean there's an increased chance that it's going to happen to my kids or anybody else. There's no genetic, hereditary part of my cancer. So I'm in marketing, I'm in data and statistics. I have to rely on the data that shows
Right.
that they're not at an increased risk. There's a million things as a parent you're going to worry about in life. I just have to take it in strides. Uh, but I'd be lying if I said there isn't heightened cognitive awareness that
Right.
if they have a cough or if their head hurts, am I like, oh my gosh, is it a tumor in their brain? Probably not. But
Right.
I just have heightened awareness of it.
What advice would you give someone who's struggling to find meaning or perspective during tough times?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I kind of said earlier of if you can find a way to not you don't have to come to terms with it, the hard times, the difficult times, but if you find a way to understand that it is part of the process, and the process meaning just life's journey. Life's journey is never a straight trajectory up and you're gonna live happily ever after. It's kind of the as long as it's going up a little bit, it's still the ebbs and flows of life. And so if you've learned to understand and appreciate the downturns, the tough times, because you just know that it's going to make the high roller coaster rides that much sweeter, that's what I would encourage people to try and get to terms with and understand.
What are some of the joys of passions you discovered or learned during your journey with cancer?
I've learned our passions that life should be filled with things that you enjoy. Meaning, I gravitated towards sports because sports is a team environment. There's people together. It's always a fun, entertaining environment, right? But my family, like I said, comes from a medical field where they work in hospitals. Hospitals was never going to be a fun place for me to work in, just given my experience. So I gravitated towards sports where you get to go to work in an arena that has 70,000 fans in it. I think I've learned that there's a couple of things, right? One is if you're thinking about big pictures and core memories, be truthful with what makes you happy and what's your passion and follow it. I have a passion for helping people. I have a passion for using emotion in a business setting. That's what marketing kind of does in advertising in a sense. So being able to play on your creativity, make fun advertisements, lighthearted spirit, and then just make a difference, an organizational difference from a business setting, make a difference in someone's lives from a community awareness setting. Those are kind of how it's shifted my perspectives.
You could go back in time and speak to your 11-year-old self. What would you say?
I would say take advantage of every day because you don't know when you're going to wake up and it'll change, right? I was good from 11 to 26, 15 years of going through cancer 3 times and it didn't affect me whatsoever. I was able to make a full recovery every time. And then one time the fourth time hits and it changes your entire outlook, entire perspective, your entire life trajectory. I'll go back and say, take advantage of those moments.
What's one misconception about living with cancer that you wish more people understood?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a misconception, but one thing that I think it's helpful for people to understand is the hardest part of cancer, going through cancer, whatever it may be, isn't when you're having treatment. Because when you're having treatment, you have doctors looking after you, nurses looking after you, your family, your friends are following up, you're getting meals sent to you. That's when the most help happens, is when you're going to treatment. And then the second you ring the bell, or in my case, you bang on a gong at MD Anderson saying your treatment's done and everyone celebrates,
Mhm.
it's staggering or shocking
Right.
how quickly people move on, and you're not there. You haven't moved on. You're still kind of in it. And that's when it's the hardest, is because you think no one understands, no one knows what you're going through. People can relate or understand when it's during treatment, but when the second treatment ends, people go back to their normal lives, which is understandable, as they should, but you don't. You still there.
How do you want to be remembered, not just as a survivor, but as a person?
Yeah, I think I want to be remembered as someone who has shown kindness to others,
Mhm.
someone who has made a positive impact in their life, whether it's directly or indirectly. Um, the bottom line is when someone sees my name on LinkedIn, or sees my name in the news, or reads my obituary, or whatever it is, I want them just to think of, I want them to get a smile on their face. Think of
Right.
the happy memories, or any way I made them feel positive rather than negative.
What legacy or lasting memory are you hoping to leave behind through your story?
I think it's one in life's journey that anyone goes through. There are going to be ebbs and flows. You are going to have heavy obstacles, hills in your way, that you really are stronger than you could ever think. Your mind is incredible at adapting. One day it could seem like a, unsurmountable journey that you're never going to get through, never going to
Right.
climb over, never going to see the other side. And then the very next day you can wake up after you process, and your brain's adapted. Your brain is already thinking about what you're going to do next once you get over that hill. Well, I guess that's what I want to leave, is even at a young age, even when it's unexpected or you're not prepared for it, you will overcome and find a way. Not because you fight more than anyone else, right? I've never, this is a sidebar, but I've never liked the term fought cancer, right?
Okay.
And no one, you never beat, it's not like I fought harder than someone else who didn't beat
Right.
cancer, right? It's just circumstance where my cancer is on the downside right now. And it's not like I fought harder, or I won the battle or beat cancer. You endure and you overcome, and you change, you adapt.
Okay, you're living and you're embracing the cards that you were dealt, and you tried to make the best of it.
It's always the cards. You can't change the cards that are being dealt.
You can't. You can't. It's an amazing thing. Now we're entering that part of the show called flip mode, where you get
Yeah.
to ask me three questions. So let's start with your first question.
Yeah, my first question, I wrote down some
Mhm.
bullet points, but I guess I'm curious for you, Carl. You run nonprofit. You may have more than one. We talked before the show about running a nonprofit. There's a lot of opportunity to help people in this world, right? Ho- what led you to picking your avenue, your mission, your reason for supporting whatever specific thing your nonprofit is doing?
Well, I'm a social justice prophet, but you know what? It was kind of traumatizing during COVID. We went through a lot of different things during COVID. And, we had the George Floyd murder by the police officers, and then we're dealing with COVID. It was kind of like a world of people that were mad at each other. And so, then there was this Black Lives Matter thing. And what came to me was I wanted a nonprofit that was for everybody, not just for Black people, not for white people, not just for Christians, Muslims being excluded. No, I wanted a nonprofit that was for everybody, that I could help and assist everybody. I could assist people here in the United States. I could assist people internationally. So it was kind of like the world was pulling all of us apart. I wanted to be a part of and do something that was going to bring everybody back together.
I like that. And I guess it leads right into my next question for you, is in the nonprofit space, or the world you're living in right now, it may seem like the job is never enough, right? It's never done. It's not like you start a nonprofit and you say, okay, I did it, I'm good, right? There's
Right.
always something else. How do you, I guess, conceptualize or find the small wins, recognize the small wins, feel like you're making a difference when your nonprofit speaks to everybody? It seems like the job's never done, but how do you celebrate the smaller wins?
Well, it's always a struggle. I mean, don't get me wrong. I long term project, but I kind of face one mountain and one valley at a time. And so right now, this is a terrible time for that. A lot of, I would have to say, I think 40% of nonprofits have went under. A combination of COVID, during the COVID, everything shut down. And so, a lot of companies, they weren't making any money. So in turn, the donations to nonprofits, the grants, a lot of the grants went away. Then the second blow happened was when USAID was cut by the Trump administration. I mean, people don't even understand. I mean, we won't understand for years the devastation impact that that's going to have international. So now, you have to start pivoting. Luckily, my nonprofit is a federal contractor. I have to start looking at things like that. SBA loans. I have to tap into that. There's various different avenues you have to, kind of pivot to in order to, keep this going without panicking or even succumbing to the situation. I just kind of, deal with one thing at a time. I'll have a list and I actually physically write out a list. And there's like 15, 20 things on that list. And if I can scratch out 2 or 3 of those things on that list, I've had a good day.
My third question then goes to, what's the end goal? What are you looking at the end of at the end of the day, at the end of the time? What is your end goal that you would like to see or effective change?
This is big. 2 end goals. Climate change is really, really big for me. We are deforesting areas. We already have areas of the earth that are, basically turning from greenland to desert. We're facing desertification. The climate is changing. And there's one tree that can save us from all of this, and it's called the acacia tree. And I mean, you can plant acacia tree in an area that is totally, totally desert. And if you water those trees during the formation stage, their roots will go deep enough to tap into a natural water source. And then over the period of 5 to 10 years, acacia trees will transform an entire environment. I mean, you will have streams where it was desert before. That's how it's acacia tree is a very, very transformative gift of nature, which we're really not utilizing. So I have another nonprofit called the Acacia Tree Foundation, which probably within the next year or two, that is one of my end goals. The other end goal is another nonprofit I have called the Off Earth Federation. And that has to deal with, once again, the environment. We're digging up, tearing up our earth, getting all of these rare earth minerals and everything else with the Off Earth Federation. Just to be very quickly, it's about mining near Earth satellites, asteroids, comets, having robotic mining machines, land on planet, dig up the resources, dump them into a space barge, just airdrop down here on Earth. And so we're not digging up and destroying nature, trying to gain all these natural resources for these batteries and things of that nature. So I'm more of an environmentalist en route. My end goal right now, personally, I'm helping individual people in their struggles in various different countries. But my end goal is really to save the planet.
I'm going to add a fourth question real fast, just humoring me.
Okay.
What's curious, what's your background? What in life led you to kind of this spot?
Wow. My background was I had my mother and father from South Carolina. My father couldn't read. He had to sign his name with an X. And my mother, she traveled with me as an infant from South Carolina to Pennsylvania. And she worked hard to, to establish us as a family. And I had a gift. I had a gift of intelligence, and I really didn't want to waste it. So I went in the military. Um, Went from being in going through computer systems, tactical general purpose computer technician, comm satellite technician, then switched over to the Navy and became an advanced underwater demolition specialist. Then went to college, got a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from UCLA, got a master's degree in analytical chemistry from UCLA, and then went to medical school. So it's just been like a very, very moving experience for me for coming from where I did, just being able to continue the journey. Excuse me, but that's very emotional for me.
Thanks for sharing, Carl.
Boy, sometimes it gets rough, but you just really keep on going. Okay, back to your story. Is there a moment in your journey, good or bad, that stands out as a turning point to you?
Yeah, it's the 2018 surgery, the one that took some physical limitations and life obstacles my way.
Okay. How do you define healing, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually?
Yeah, it's understanding and appreciating. Appreciating doesn't necessarily mean it was a good thing that happened to you. It's okay that things happen to you, but if you understand how that plays a role in your understanding of life, your perspective, your mindset, your vision, then that's part of healing in itself.
Is there anything you've never shared before that you feel ready to speak about today in your transition with your cancer? Or have you always just been open about your journey?
I've been open about my journey in different life points. I think for the first, I don't know, 10, 15 years, I never thought of it as cancer. And it was probably my own naivety
Right.
or the way I was raised and informed of what it was. But it's no, I don't think there's anything I haven't shared. I didn't talk about it much, but now I'm at a point in life where it's your story.
Right.
I don't want to be known as Nick Segar, the cancer guy, but
Right.
it's part of my story. I want to be known as Nick Segar, who also had this and they overcame this and now gives back doing this, that kind of stuff. But no, nothing that comes to mind, Carl.
Lastly, what message would you like to give to anyone listening right now who is in the middle of their own battle, struggling with cancer?
Reach out, talk to someone. MD Anderson, when you're done with treatment, you have an opportunity to write something in Sharpie on a wall. It's a big wall, MD Anderson, that kind of stuff, right? I wrote, "You are never alone." I thought I came up with that quote. I obviously didn't. It's not a unique quote by any means, but I truly feel it. You are never alone in your journey. Someone has gone through the exact same thing you're going through. Please reach out. Please just talk to someone, and I am always here.
Okay. Well, Nick, thank you for sharing your incredible journey with us. Your honesty, perspective, and strength are truly moving and a reminder of just how powerful the human spirit can be. To our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that they are not alone in their battles. Until next time, this is Carl Allen, and you've been listening to the All About Us podcast, where real stories bring us closer together. Have a great day. Okay, we are back, the All About Us podcast, because I was talking to Nick at the end of the show, and he just brought up something, and we needed to actually be a part of this podcast show. Nick has written, a book for children concerning cancer. So, Nick, I would like for you to explain your book and explain where this book can be ordered. How do we get a hold of this book?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Carl. The book's called Stronger Every Day, A Child's Guide to Conquering Cancer. Very long title. Totally get that. But you can find it anywhere an e-commerce book can be sold, really. Amazon's the easiest. It's on Walmart, Barnes & Noble, but Google search it. Google search my first last name and probably cancer, and it'll show up. It's a pink header, structured as a children's book. So it's a kind of a limerick. It's poems
Okay.
or rhyming stanzas based off of kind of someone's journey of what to expect, that it's okay, you're going to lose your hair, you're still beautiful on the inside. Some reviews that have come in have said, hey, it's not only just about overcoming cancer, it's just a good book to read to kids about overcoming any obstacle. So if you're interested, I would encourage you to Google search it, look for that pink title, and I really hope you enjoy it.
Okay, my listeners, the links and all the information as far as Nick's book and how to acquire it will also be in the promos and in the actual notes, podcast show notes. So once again, if you know a child who's experiencing cancer or going through any type of hardship, pick up the book for them, order the book, and be a blessing. Have a great day. Thank you.